In this section, we will work on the steps, and we have a set of front steps and a set of back steps. And on the medium weight chipboard on page 2 of 3, you'll see the pieces for the front steps, and then underneath that are the pieces for the back steps. And then the front steps also have a small piece of lightweight chipboard, and that's this band right here. And when you cut this band, make sure you cut it so that it's flexible in that long direction. We also have a page with some templates for the front steps and the back steps. It's the same page we used for the windows a while ago. I've also put out some scraps of decorative paper to use, my marker to color this strip here, and we'll also need a compass or a circle template that has a, if you're using a circle template, a circle that makes a 3-inch circle. So I'll start by working on the front steps and cutting this back and front piece that we need. And each end is the same, I just have only put the measurements on one end. So if we measure in from either the right or the left, we'll draw 2 vertical lines, each 5/16 of an inch apart. So 5/16, which is an inch more than 1/4 of an inch, and just draw 2 5/16 inch lines in on the left and 2 on the right. And once you have those 4 vertical lines, turn your piece on the side. This piece is 3/4 of an inch, and we need to make a line at 1/4 and then at 1/2. And you just have to do it down here on the end where we've made these marks. Now you'll have something that looks like a little tic-tac-toe board, and you want to erase things so you don't get confused about what to cut. So just look over here at the template, and I can see I don't want to cut up here or here. So I should end up with something that makes those 3 steps down, and again I'll erase over on this side, and then I can make those cuts and repeat that on my other piece. Now you'll see, if you don't overcut, that these little cutoffs here can actually be used down here when we get to making the back steps. But we'll make them again just in case you overcut, because it's easy to overcut. The other piece that we want to cut is what I call the front piece. It's basically a semicircle of a circle with a 1.5 inch radius or a 3-inch diameter, but it's been extended 1/4 of an inch straight down past that semicircle. So I'll show you how to create it with both a circle template and with a compass. Now, no matter which method you use, you want to start out by drawing a 1/4 inch line on the bottom. And then this piece has been cut oversized, so just find the center, and on that 1/4 inch line make a point in the center. And this is the method for using a compass. So set your compass to 1.5 inches radius, that's what it shows here, and put it on that point, and only draw above the 1/4 inch line. Once you get to that 1/4 inch line, we're just going to extend that straight down And this is easy to cut with scissors, or you can use a craft knife. Scissors, if you're using scissors, first cut, rough cut about 1/8 of an inch away from that curve, and then cut cleanly on that line. Now to do this, if you have a 3-inch circle template, again we start with the 1/4 inch line at the bottom. Find your 3-inch circle, and there's tick marks on that you can line up with that 1/4 inch. And once you have that aligned, you can just draw the semicircle, and then again extend down the 2 lines straight, or straight from the 2 points where it intersects the 1/4 inch line. And I didn't say this, but remember, it's always smart to erase any guidelines just so that you make sure that you are only going to cut what you want to cut, so that we don't make a mistake and cut it off shorter than it's supposed to be. So whatever method you use the same for both, so that your circles will end up being the exact same size. And once you get them cut, go ahead and glue them up together. And once I have that glue up completed, I just take a emery board, if there's any unevenness there, and just get rid of that so that I have a nice smooth curve. Next, I'll prep the 4 little steps and the top step with score tape, and also I've already done this on the semicircle, prep both sides with score tape. This gets decorative paper on both sides, and the steps just need decorative paper on one side. Everything is cut even with the edges. So now we're ready to assemble our front steps, and the pieces that we cut out the notches on, they go against your work surface because they're glued to the outside edges of the base, and so are the little 1/4 inch strips. They fit in between the ends, and they sit right against they get glued to the outside of the base, and then the other front piece does. So I'll go ahead and glue that little assembly. Now you want to make sure that it is that the sides, the front and the back here, are staying plumb, so just use something to make sure that it's standing straight up there. And the other thing that can help you with that is that the steps are sized to fit exactly across there as well. So we put 2 steps on either side, glue them on, and then the top goes on the top. Now before I attach this front piece to the steps, I'm going to take the steps like this and over to the house and use them so that I can get my front door in place. I'm not going to attach the steps to the house. I'm just attaching the door and using the steps to determine what height. Now that I have my door in place, I can glue my front piece to the steps, and I'll just center it on the steps, and it should come flat to the bottom. You shouldn't see the edges of the steps should come behind the edge there. So just put some wet glue on one side, it doesn't matter, they're both flush, and attach this piece and have whichever side showing that you want. And while this front piece is drying, we can go ahead and get our band prepped. And I'm going to start by just taking a marker and inking both sides and all the edges to make it black. This is the paper I'm going to use to go on the edge of that band, and I've prepped it with a 1/4 inch of score tape here. But I'm going to cut this, I think, about 3/16 just so I can have a little reveal of black on each side. But you can cut it 1/4 inch and have it go the whole width of the band if you want. This strip is really too narrow to try to ink it with the Distress inks, I think, so I'm just taking my black marker so I won't see that white edge along it. And now our piece here should be dry enough to work with. And what we'll do is just run a little bead of glue along that edge and wrap it so that it starts right at the bottom, and you just can center it on there because this front piece is only 1/8 inch wide and this is 1/4, so 3/16 will go on either side of that, give a nice little shadow reveal. And then let it dry thoroughly, and then you can cut off the end even. So I'm sorry I didn't think of zooming in before, but I've zoomed in now, and here I'm just going to trim off that bottom edge and make sure it's flush there. And then we can just take our little strip that we cut and center it and wrap that around, and then trim that to length as well. So for our back steps, I'm just working on a longer piece here, just because cutting on tiny pieces is it's a little hazardous, I think. So I'm marking in 5/16 and then another 5/16, which is 5/8, and that's where I'm going to eventually cut it off. And then I'll just flip it this way, and this piece is 1/2 inch tall, so we're just going to make a line at 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to erase the line that I'm not going to cut. So I'm cutting out a little notch here, and then once I do that, I'll cut it off at 5/8. So there's one side, and then I'll just repeat that process and make another side. So to put together this little unit, it's similar to how we did the front steps. The back gets glued to the outside of the base. The back sits flat against your work surface and glues to the outside of the base. And then this little 1/4 inch piece, the same thing, it glues to the front of the base, so nothing is going on top of the base, and it sits flat on the work surface. Once we do that, the base, which is 1/2 inch wide, will increase to being 5/8 of an inch wide, and our two little end pieces can get glued on. So I'll go ahead and do that. And while the glue is setting up on this little unit, we can take our two little step tops for the back steps and put score tape on them and decorative paper and ink them up so they're ready to be attached. And then once this unit is dry and our steps are ready, we can just go ahead and put a little bit of glue and center them. Make sure that on the back edge here that the top step does not go past that back edge. It's all flush back here, because that'll get eventually glued to the house. And so here are the little front and back step units.